Welcome, everybody, to Reckless Speculation. I'm Robbie. We have Brandon Chain with us and Tom Sloan. I'll be hosting tonight. Randall is again out this week. He's working too many hours in order to do all of this. But thank you for joining us. I'm going to say off the get go, if you have watched us, please get down and like us and subscribe to the YouTube channel, Facebook, whatever else we're on. If you have not watched us and you're joining us for the first time, I'll remind you again at the end of the show. Um, we'll start with you, Brandon. What's new? What's new since last week?
Just plugging along this week. It's been a rainy week so far, and not getting a lot of construction done on the outside. But overall, decent week.
So what can you guys do when it's raining versus what can't you do?
Well, it depends. I mean, we have several jobs inside that are remodels that we can do, but there's a lot that's exterior that it just tracking up mud and making a big mess. It's just not fun, and guys don't like to play in the rain as much. So
Yeah.
just kind of comes with the territory. Tis the season for that, and clients understand and know that, and we do what we can.
I got you. All right, Tom, how about yourself? What's new since we heard from you last?
Well, a certain team down the road went to Indianapolis and brought home the Big Ten championship for the second year in a row. So that was exciting to watch on Saturday. And yours truly is turning the dials tonight with the StreamYard. So got some fun graphics and things lined up, maybe a few sounds here and there, and just to kind of give a little pizzazz to the broadcast. I think you guys will enjoy, and viewers will enjoy as well. So,
Okay, nice. So you guys being established Big Ten members, there's going to be a Big Ten future person joining us a little bit later. So before we get into the playoff, which is on our agenda, um, quick thoughts about Braun leaving Purdue after leading Purdue to the West Championship Division Championship, jumping ship to his alma mater, Louisville. Um, this was kind of news, and it was interesting. I know Tennessee has tried to get him a couple of times in the past, and he would not leave Purdue for Tennessee. I know that your alma mater is your alma mater, and home's going to have a certain bit of heartstrings for you. But what was y'all's thoughts when y'all saw him leave Purdue for Louisville? We'll start with Tom.
I was surprised just seeing how they played last Saturday. They gave Michigan pretty much all they could handle, especially in the first half. And you could see his players just really react well to him. And I just thought that maybe he was building something. Going 3-0 against top three teams, you know, was a pretty good record. And knowing how good they played against Michigan, you thought maybe some recruits would jump to them through the portal or whatnot. But maybe looking at O'Connell being gone, he was a fifth-year senior, not really wanting to start all over with a new quarterback. Possibly gave him lead to that, but like you said, it's the alma mater.
Yeah.
That's kind of everyone's dream job as far as college coaching goes, or even any coaching if you're a former professional player and you get to coach your team you used to play for. So I think the lure of going home probably was it. But for Purdue as a program, it's very kind of deflating seeing that where he kind of put them. He put them somewhat on the map and had them rolling a little bit. And so is he afraid of the teams coming in a couple of years that they might not be as competitive? Who knows? But I think ultimately it's him going home was the reason why he left.
Yeah, and from what I understand, this was not I mean, obviously he just won the division, but it wasn't him being on the hot seat and not pulling what I call the Conzo Martin and just move. You're about to get fired, so you just switch jobs to keep from getting fired. Brandon, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I agree with Tom 100%. It's, alma mater there for sure. Like that was the job that was going to get him away from Purdue. He saw opportunity and he took it. Let's be honest. Purdue had a pretty decent season, but it wasn't, you know, standards, I guess, for college playoffs. So, um, move on. Try and rebuild something, and not necessarily that Louisville needs a whole lot of rebuilding, but with NIL and transfer portal now, I mean, there's a lot of things you can do there and change the game. So, yeah, I mean, ultimately, you want to go home, and that's the biggest thing. And I don't think you can hold that against a guy for that.
And just real quickly, and I'll stay with you, Brandon, right now. If you are a coach, and let's just take alma mater out of it, you're looking at the landscape. Which one is it easier to get into the 12-team playoff? It to me, it almost seems like Louisville. You could finish second in the ACC and hopefully get in a lot easier than you can finish third, fourth in the Big Ten and get in, which is kind of where, if there weren't for divisions, where Purdue would have been slotted this year. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I totally agree with that statement, and that has to be a factor in the decision, for sure. And again, I keep bringing this up, the NIL and transfer portal. I mean, now you can start bringing, like we'll talk about later, Dion and some of your luggage and your boys with you.
Yeah.
I mean, that's all possible now. So, uh,
Well, I will say this. There's engineer money and at Purdue. Then there's owning horse racing money in Louisville. Those things don't compete. If Louisville wants to get behind some
yes,
NIL deal, like that's
absolutely,
serious money.
absolutely.
Tom, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, he's pretty much right as far as the better chance. I think you'll have maybe a better crop of players coming out of the portal or even in recruiting in general that they see what Lamar Jackson did at Louisville, and that might lure the type of player like him to Louisville. But yeah, I, I, I think ultimately it is an upgrade. I mean, there's some coaches in my estimation that really didn't make uh, upgrade moves, as Rich like to say. They were parallel moves, and I think we had a couple coaches follow that route. But yeah, I mean, ACC, you're gonna get more of a wider range of kid willing and wanting to go to your school rather than the Midwest big hog of uh, you know uh, Indiana, Wisconsin, Michigan, the Ohio kids that tend to stay close to home. So I think the recruiting gives you a little more option to go
Mhm.
down into Florida and range areas like that. So maybe that was probably appealing to him.
Yeah. All right. So we've hinted at it. We've it's been talked about, and I don't really want to get into the rankings. I don't want to get into should Tennessee be above Alabama. With it doesn't matter. But I do want to talk about. Um, all right. So first of all, just open-ended question. What are y'all's thoughts on the top four? Brandon, I know you are extremely happy and agree with it, so I'm gonna start with Tom a little bit and get what his thoughts are.
Well, I mean, this was a different year, and I know Randall was perturbed over the text chain, and uh, sometimes logic falls to the wayside when it comes to reality with people, which is fine. I fall victim to that as well. But I think you have a situation where um, one lost team that made it to the conference championship, that lost in overtime, had an opportunity to win. Uh, I don't see them being able to punish them for that, to put a 2-loss Alabama into the playoff. It was kind of unprecedented to have a team come in there, lose, and not lose any ground. So that kind of was shocking in a lot of people. But the reality is, the committee didn't want anything to do with putting a Michigan Ohio State rematch in the semis. And as
Yeah,
much as
that's what I was going to ask. Was that just deliberate of just,
yes,
hey, we don't
100%.
want to see this right back?
as much as Boo wanted to say they didn't think of there was no discussion about it.
Bull.
That's all they discussed. We
Yeah.
can't have this. We need this to happen in a championship
Yeah.
scenario. So the way it stood, obviously 1 and 2 wasn't going to change. TCU earned that right to stay where they were in relation to the next 3 teams behind them. So I think they got it right. And a lot of other talking heads agree that they got it right. And, you have the people that think, well, Georgia's going to take Ohio State to the woodshed. I mean, I don't know. Who knows? Play it on the field, play the game. Ohio State's reeling off a big loss to Michigan for the second year in a row. Will that fire them up? Who knows? I still think it's Ohio State in the end of the day, and they're going to give them a tough battle. I think it'd be a better battle, a better matchup than TCU would, Georgia. So I think they got it right.
And I do agree. I don't think the committee had anywhere else. There is the point of they didn't want a rematch between Ohio State and Michigan, but I also think there was nowhere to go. How can you move TCU back for playing in a championship game and losing in overtime and let Ohio State sit there and move up? So even if it wasn't Michigan at 2, I still think that's the same result just because why? Well, I mean, why not opt out of a championship game then? If that's your penalty.
Yeah.
Brandon, what are your thoughts overall on the top 4?
I completely agree with that. TCU played a hard game. They really did. It was lost in overtime. I mean, conference championship. It's hard to penalize a team that is undefeated going into a conference championship and then it only has 1 loss. So that said, you look at the people advocating for Alabama. All right, their best 2 wins: number 21 Texas, number 23 Mississippi State. Best 2 wins they've had all year. Now,
Alabama shouldn't be in the conference. Tennessee should be in the conference. After saying we shouldn't talk about that, Alabama shouldn't even be discussed.
this is what I'm saying, and they were on the verge of getting in with
Yeah.
what, and that was that's current seedings right now after it all curtain fell. This is current seedings. Just not that impressive. This isn't the Alabama that we're used to. Now, is Bryce Young one of the best and most talented players in the country? Absolutely. Should he be potentially in the Heisman run? We'll talk about that later. But yeah, Alabama was no question. So I think it was a strategic seeding on that part for them in hopes that if TCU got blown out, it was going to be Alabama, Georgia, Ohio State, and Michigan. And that's what they're going for, because if we look at all signs pointing to these 2 power conferences right now, and that's what they're going for. And it would make them more happy right now to have those 4 in the national championship run right now. And I don't agree with it, but whatever. Now, I'm not going to get into the Tennessee thing. We might get into that later when we get into the Heisman discussion, because there's no way by standards that Tennessee should have been ranked under Alabama.
And so I'm going to get into who wins and why for each of these semifinals in a second. But I want to know, do y'all agree or disagree with this statement or this premise? So when I heard the 12-team playoff, I was like, it's going to kill the conference championship games. It's going to make the regular season diminished. But how it played out this year, where now Utah's in, now Kansas State's in. Not only are they in, they're going to have bye weeks, and so at least one of them will. And so you are going to have now. Is the conference championship game now a almost like some of that play-in March Madness feel of, hey, maybe a 9-3 Purdue or whatever they were, a 10-3 Kansas, 9-3 Kansas State. Maybe they're at the table now and they've got a shot to win it. And so, is the 12 team going to make conference championships? I think it's going to make them more relevant. Do you all agree or disagree, Tom?
I agree, because if you look at the format right now, if they were to play it today, Clemson would have a bye. And as wrong as that is, that per the way they're going to set everything up, conference champion is going to hold weight. So the conference championship definitely is going to be heavily predicated on how the tournament's going to play out. And I can't say that I agree with that. I really can't, because so if you're looking at it, so fact of the matter, Ohio State would be playing, in the first round.
Yeah, to clarify, Kansas State would have Clemson would have a bye with 2 losses,
yes,
and TCU would be playing week 1 or round 1.
Mm-hmm. It's just your conference champions, top 4, and it doesn't matter where they end up in the ranking system. If they win their championship conference game, they're going to be one of the 4 to have a bye week in the first round. And I don't agree with that.
Mm-hmm. Brandon, what are your thoughts about agree or disagree with the statement that it's going to make the championship games more relevant?
Definitely more relevant. And, to Tom's point, you're going to see, people slide through and catch a bye week. But you're also going to see teams that, just lost barely, that maybe had a bad day or, hyped up, overhyped, whatever, that can actually compete. And it's going to become somewhat similar to like a MLB playoff type system, where you see it's not the best team on paper that wins. It's the hot team right now. And, who's out coaching who, regardless. I mean, obviously you need talent on the field, but most of the time those upsets come with lesser talent, and you're going to see that. And this year, if not any, just screams like more than 4. Whether it be 8 or 12 or whatever it is, it's going to 12, but it screams more than 4.
Raj, so I don't know if you heard the question, but welcome, Raj. Hope all is well with you. We're talking about? So just right now, initial thoughts on the top 4 in the college football playoff.
I'm sure it's all been said about the top 4. I agree with it. Is it as simple as going with the 1-loss teams? Sure. Did TCU? I think it's clear that, TCU, for them not to move at all, I didn't agree with, but we all know the politics, and the committee didn't want that rematch. I'm sure that was discussed. But overall, I'm happy with it just because of how everything else shook out. Quickly, as far as U.S., are we going to talk about the Heisman later?
Yeah.
Okay. So that's all we have at USC. But anyway, with the playoff, I haven't seen the proposed schedule. I've read about how it will work, but what's interesting to me is that we can't ask kids to play 20 games in a season, right? So just by nature, I know that some non-conference games will be shortened, but from what I've read, that invariably it seems like conference games will be shortened as well. So if that is the case, you're putting more of an importance on a conference championship, which obviously it seems that will be the case. Not to mention, at least the conference games won't be increased. And when you have these super conferences, invariably it's going – I mean, that's the whole point of the playoff, right? Because let's say in the Big Ten, if USC ducks Ohio State and Michigan, that's why we have a playoff. So isn't it sort of the argument kind of falls on itself, rather, that we're shortening conference games, but conferences are getting bigger. And one reason being is that with a playoff, there's less of an importance on conference and non-conference games. However, by the luck of the draw, if you win your conference, you are going to get some kind of favorable treatment. Does that make sense?
Yep.
Like eventually, I know we talked about just doing away with conferences altogether at some point.
Divisions, anyhow, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. But it's not going to solve the fairness issue. On some level, though, there will always be controversy. But I feel like conferences will be devalued in general, yet we are still going to place an importance on them when it comes to playoff seeding.
Well, and so this is where it gets a little bit like the NFL, but a little more skewed, I think, in my opinion. Like, let's say you're Michigan, Georgia, Ohio State, Alabama, Tennessee, whoever, USC. Would you prefer to go ahead and play a home game and keep that momentum rolling versus, hey, are we going to let our players just practice for a month and then you come and play against a team that has played the week before?
Good point.
And so that it's what you see a lot with the first four in the March Madness tournament is
and baseball. It's
yeah.
every sport when the mentality, especially with kids, when you are in quote unquote playoff mode, you can't duplicate that versus especially with kids. Absolutely, you want to play in that game.
I think if I'm a coach, I'm coaching, I'll take Neyland Stadium as a home game versus sitting in my indoor practice facility for a week.
Yeah.
Hey, it's a risk, but my team's ready. They're in elimination mode.
Absolutely.
They're ready to go.
Having to travel, especially next year, unforeseen circumstances for everyone. But yeah, the wild card in the NFL before they expanded, there was, I think, the first wild card winner wasn't until 1980, the Oakland Raiders. After that, it was sparingly when that occurred. But now it seems like it always happens. Somebody that plays on that first weekend gets to the Super Bowl. Last year it was Cincinnati. Yeah.
Yeah, they came into Nashville. They were ready to go. We were sloppy, and they knocked us off.
Same thing. And the Raiders almost beat them. I went to that game, and that was the first game. But after they won that game, they knew what it takes with your back against the wall. And that's, I mean, for 20-year-old kids, that's invaluable.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and momentum is a real thing. Like when you're a kid and when you're playing and you're feeling it, the last thing you want to do is go sit on your ass for like 2 weeks or a month, and just wait and contemplate. You want to get in the groove. You want to practice your, standard practice, and you want to keep playing, and feel real game time situation. And it definitely, in my opinion, hurts the kids, especially at that age. It hurts the kids more so than not. So
and another thing is going to be the scheduling of it. Is if you have that bye, you're sending the kids home for Christmas, and so there's trouble. There's a lot. There's eating. There's as opposed to if you have that first home game, hey, everyone's got to stay on campus. We got to be here. and keep
It's
that regimen.
business as it's
Reading the
business as
press,
usual.
everyone, your boys telling you how great you are, everyone telling you how you're going to win it all.
Yeah.
And
Go to the club.
exactly.
Go to the club,
club,
and next thing you know, you're in jail. And
eat 7 pounds of stuffing, and just
bad stuff has happened, man. There's no doubt about it.
yeah.
All right. So, guys, we're going to talk about just the semifinals right now on the college football playoffs. Who wins and why do they win? We're going to start with Georgia and Ohio State. We'll start with you, Raj. Who wins and why?
Ooh.
It's in Atlanta.
But Ohio State travels. I think it will be 50-50. This is one of those sneaky games, in my opinion. I just got home, as I mentioned. I have not seen the spread on this. I imagine it's like 8.
8.5?
6.5.
6.5. I'm taking Georgia just because of just overall, and we saw what Michigan did, and Georgia has the biggest hogs I've ever seen. And behind that line, and Stetson Bennett is J.J. McCarthy, but more accurate, a very similar mold, and a great leader. So I think overall, based on what we saw also from that secondary that gave up the big play, I'll take Georgia. But I think this game is sneaky close, and I would not be surprised if just Ohio State came out and did the opposite of what happened against Michigan. They kind of looked a little lackadaisical there, like, we're at home, we'll show up, we're favored by a lot of points. Ohio State as an underdog is a rare thing. So I wouldn't be shocked, but I'll take Georgia based upon what I said, especially the big play.
All right, Tom, to you. Who wins and why?
Both games? Are we breaking down both games?
No. Just the Georgia Ohio State.
Okay.
Then we're gonna go to the other one.
Okay. Well,
Bad question.
Yeah, I agree with Raj. I think an underdog Ohio State team you rarely ever see, and like I said earlier, they've got a bad taste in their mouth, and they do not want to go out the way they went out against Michigan. With that being said, I think this is a situation where they come out hot, a lot like Purdue did last Saturday. They're riding a lot of just kind of high emotions. CJ Stroud's got some impressions to make, and for that, I think Ohio State comes out strong. Obviously, their weak spot is their secondary, and Stetson Bennett has been able to exploit that. Look at what he did against Tennessee, and obviously last week against LSU, that wasn't even fun to watch. So I can see a situation where at the half it's close, but the experience, the size and strength of Georgia will probably prevail. I see this game being within 10. Not sure if Ohio State will cover, but it's not going to be a blowout because at the end of the day, it's still Ohio State. It's still an explosive offense, and they'll make it close, but Georgia, in the end, too strong and experienced. I'll go with the Bulldogs.
All right, Brandon, how much money are you betting on the Buckeyes?
I don't bet on the Buckeyes. For that obvious reason, I don't want to be biased and bet with my heart. So, I agree with the breakdown here. I think Georgia is a very similar team to Michigan as far as physicality and the front offensive line. We'll see. I would put, if I was a betting man, I would probably take the 6.5 with Georgia. Obviously, as a fan, I do not want that, and I'm hoping that this is reminiscent of 2014, where everyone cast us out against Alabama, and somehow we won that game and won the national championship. But I don't know if our coaching cannot make adjustments at halftime, which we failed to do against Michigan. If they don't learn their lesson quickly, and actually they have a lot of time, almost a whole month to watch that film and look at the mistakes they made.
Don't play cover zero.
Yeah, do not play cover zero continuously and sell out for the run. I mean, and
Yeah.
Stetson Bennett, let's just say, all right, he's good, but the Georgia Bulldogs are physical in the front. That's their thing. I mean, these guys just mold people over. They beat people around. They just wear you down. And that said, Tennessee, best offense in the country, only scored like 14 on them or something. But Tennessee's defense, which is one of the worst in the country, only gave up 27. So if Ohio State can actually score, I think there's a shot outside, that they could pull this off. But, if I'm putting any money on it, I'm taking Georgia in the points. Sad's my soul to say.
Yeah. This will be the first time Georgia has faced a foe that is somewhat athletically talented, coached as well as they are away from Athens this year. While it's going to be in Atlanta, I agree with Raj. Ohio State's going to travel well, and that dome is nothing compared to Sanford Stadium. And they beat Tennessee a lot of the reason because Tennessee couldn't hear and they could not coordinate, and that will change in this dome. And so
Sure.
I'm interested to see that. All right, so let's go to the next matchup, 2 versus 3. We have Michigan and TCU. We'll go Raj, you first. Who wins and why?
I mean, I'll take Michigan all day, even without Corum. TCU's strength is not stopping the run. Kansas State went for over 200 yards against them. Deuce Vaughn, 130. He's averaged a big chunk against them. It's not the first time they've given up yards. Now, they have played well in certain situations, like, against Texas and Bijan Robinson in against teams that are one-dimensional, but Michigan's not one-dimensional. I don't care what anybody says. And quarterbacks that are mobile, like Howard, give them problems. And J.J. McCarthy, I think, is going to have an amazing day. Michigan's on a mission. They have something to prove. And TCU is unfortunate because they are in their way.
Okay. Brandon, what about you?
Yeah, I don't think it's going to be as close as the line shows. I think they're 7.5 or 9.5 point favorites right now. This is going to be kind of a war of attrition in the beginning. I like Michigan in the first half, just dominating the front seven and just imposing their will, and then you're going to see them separate in the second half because they've been a second half team. To be honest, both teams have been a second half team this year, and you've seen TCU hang on by a thread in a lot of games, and the championship game, it could have gone either way. It was a coin flip. But that being said, Michigan is just a little bit more dominant on both sides of the ball. And Max Dugan's had a great year. Nothing away from that kid, but I think Michigan wins by 10 to 14 points.
All right, Tom, before I go to you, if Michigan shows up on those blue-on-blue uniforms, I'm going to lose it. Stop messing with the Michigan uniforms. Just stop.
You don't like the maize out? Or the
No, no, it is just perfect. Like, Michigan uniforms are perfect. Just keep them how they are. The originals, just keep them.
Yellow
all right,
pants,
Tom.
blue top.
All about looks.
Yeah,
These
white top,
kids
yellow
want it.
pants. Yeah. All right, Tom, what do you think? Who wins and why?
Well, I'm going to go Michigan here. Although Purdue proved last week that when you have a really good quarterback, he can give you fits, and that's what O'Connell did last week to them. Max Duggan, if you go back to last week against Kansas State, he put TCU on his back literally and put them in OT. Pretty much with his athleticism, that poor kid had scrapes and bruises all up and down his arms. I don't know how he was able to get on his feet for overtime. So that could pose a problem for Michigan. They've had issues with quarterbacks that can scramble and get out of the pocket and make plays downfield. But like Brandon said, this is a team that goes into overtime with no worries, no fear, and they just make adjustments. I don't understand it. This has been happening for the majority of the season that, they have a lackluster first half and they go to overtime and they come out completely different team. And the same was said last week. That offensive line, held serve in the first half. Second half, they just pushed Purdue back. And obviously Donovan Edwards went crazy. I'm not too sure if that's his real voice that he's got after those interviews, but Michigan's too strong up front. Games are won and lost in those trenches, and as you've seen each game after the Ohio State last week, the playbook's been opened up a little bit for JJ, and his confidence level is through the roof. The way he's zipping the ball in. From earlier in the season, he was putting a lot of air on his passes. Now they're line drives. It's just really remarkable to see his confidence. And the more confidence he has, the better he performs. So I'm looking for Michigan, J.J. McCarthy specifically, to have a huge game. I think Michigan's secondary was a little embarrassed in the first half, and they're looking to just get to Georgia as fast as they can. They have rematch on their mind, and Michigan will win by 2 touchdowns.
All right, that's a great you it's almost like you predicted my next question. So 2 quick questions before we move on to this. I think it was Clemson, Alabama 2 or 3 during that 3-year run, or 3 out of 4. Clemson played Notre Dame in the semifinals with practically a 99% chance of Alabama in the finals. Dabo Sweeney admitted, look, we spent about a week on Notre Dame, and then we scouted Alabama the rest of the time. It worked for Clemson to do that. Any chance, Tom, you brought up, Michigan, are they looking ahead to Georgia?
I don't think so. This is a different locker room, and you could see just in the way after the game last week how they were such a unit, such a strong unit together. And I think for as weird as Harbaugh is, those players believe in him, and he's he's a different bird. Let me tell you what.
Yeah.
He's hard to sit there and listen to, but those players believe in him, and I do think it's the old cliche, next game, whatnot, and I think they're following that model, and I don't believe they're going to be looking ahead of TCU.
All right. So anyone have concerns that Michigan would be looking ahead?
I don't think so.
All right. So I'm going to put over under 1.5. The number of coaches between Harbaugh and Ryan Day that are back at their same jobs next year.
Over for sure.
So everything's both are back.
Yeah.
Unless, he could get more heat. I know that he's getting for sale signs on his lawn. If they get absolutely smoked, and then recruiting in the portal and people just start abandoning ship, especially for Michigan, yeah, I could see that. But if I'm a betting man and you're giving me 1.5, I'll take the over.
Yeah.
If Michigan wins it and he wins a championship in his alma mater, does he bounce back to the pros?
If Indianapolis comes calling, I think that's the only way he goes. But I think he felt the backlash from the fans specifically last year when he.
But if you win, if you
wins,
win,
I don't know. I really believe this time he's all in on. I mean, he's proven he's got an endless contract. I mean, he's a blank
yeah.
check for the most part. So I don't. It's not a money issue. I don't believe. And I don't know. I think he's built something pretty special here, and I don't know. I was always the opponent of him, staying, but now I think coaches are going to want to come here and learn under him. He's starting to develop a tree now, so I think he stays.
Yeah, I agree. I think he stays. He's won everywhere he's been, right? Like Stanford, San Diego, not San Diego State.
Yep.
San Diego.
No, USD.
USD, yeah. The Fighting
San Diego,
Toreros.
not San Diego State.
Where Dalton Kincaid, the U.S.
One at Stanford.
The Jenny Craig Pavilion.
Yeah, I mean, he's won everywhere he's been, and we ragged on him for 7 or 8 years because he couldn't win a game against Ohio State. And that's what we do as Ohio State fans, rag on Michigan and everything they have. But he is a weird dude, but he's a good coach overall. I mean, his stats prove that. And did he, job search a little bit? Yeah, probably. We know for a fact he had a couple interviews, but maybe now he actually believes that this is where he belongs. So, it's hard to say. Money does strange things to people. And if he's offered a spot in the NFL at a premier institution, I guess that could help. But his alma mater is Michigan. So I he's making as much as he wants to right now. So I don't see why I'd leave.
And another thing, there's rumors that he's, his brother's got a Super Bowl. That's kind of his crowning jewel that he wants. But I don't know. It's hard.
Well,
it's hard to say.
It's just Barry Switzer, Jimmy Johnson, and Pete Carroll. Are those the only three? Or am I missing someone that has an NCAA championship and a Super Bowl?
That sounds about right.
Did Dennis Erickson win both? I can't remember if he did or not, but I know those three did. But anyway, speaking of coaches, we're going to transition to a team that is not in the bowl games, that is not in the playoff, that hasn't set the playoff, but they have got at least one of the most electrifying coaches in Deion Sanders in Colorado. Obviously a weird kind of transition. We've heard the press conferences. I'm sure everyone else has too. I guess, Raj, I'll start with you.
You're welcome, by the way. You're welcome.
Yeah. What are your thoughts of Deion in Colorado, and what are your expectations?
It's funny because I called that initially, but the more I'm not proud of this, but the more you guys talked, and Rob, I was talking about Boulder and whatnot, and I kind of started talking myself out of it internally. But I just thought back to the era of Colorado football and it being a nice jumping point. It's almost like a mid-major. I think he's going to do very well in this. If the transfer portal didn't exist, then no. Mm-mm. But Travis Hunter said 100%. Essentially, he's coming there. He said that today. As a USC guy, it's going to put a dent in West Coast recruiting. There's no question about it.
Yeah.
It's going to be very similar to USC in the sense that they're going to have a lot of roster turnover. He brought in Sean Lewis from Kent State, who is a great coach. They run the Flash. What do they call their offense?
The fourth fastest offense in the country.
Yeah, and they call it like the Flash Fast or something. And that is an offense to run when you don't quite have the horses to do a lot of other things. So you're going to see a lot of fast, speedy kids on that field, especially on offense. Defense, it's going to take time. But, I expect them, especially in the Pac-12 and this is why I don't think he's as big of a threat to USC long-term, or that he's going to be at Colorado that long. Once USC and UCLA leave, the Pac-12, and many expect Oregon and probably Washington, what's going to be left? Nobody wants to go out there and play Colorado State every year. It's just, it's a stepping stone program, and I think they're going to light it up on offense, and it's going to get a lot of speed and a lot of transfers. We're going to see the real Deion Sanders as a coach, because in HBCU, when speed and you get that kind of talent, you can win. I mean, there's no question about it. It's not comparable what he had versus other teams and rosters, but now it's going to be a little bit different. And is he just a name who gets, speed and kids want to play for literally a human highlight film, or is he a long-term, viable, verifiable championship potential NCAA football coach? We'll see.
Well said. Tom, what about you? What do you think about, what does it look like, and if it's successful, how long do you think it's going to take?
Well, I think you go back a couple years ago and you found out that he was jumping into the ranks of head coaching. I think the big question was, well, we all know he's probably one of the best to ever do it at his position. Can he coach? Can he recruit? And at the HBCU level, he proved, yeah, he could, and he turned that program around unbelievably. Back-to-back SWAC champions. Hey, that rhymed. So he proved that he can coach. Now, this is definitely a step up. You're gonna face tougher competition, especially this coming season. His schedule is brutal. So again, the question will be, will he be able to coach at the next level? And I think the answer is probably going to be yeah, simply because of the transfer portal, the hype train of kids getting in that portal and wanting to go to Colorado was crazy. So he's going to get a nice selection of battle-tested kids, possibly 3-4 star recruits, in other programs. So I think it's tough to say he won't succeed. I feel like Raj said, this is just a stepping stone. I think ultimately he wants to be in a program that, an Alabama type program, or just an upper echelon Power 5 program where he really can shine. And this will give him the know-how if he can do it or not, if it's worth progressing. And ironically enough, who was the coach there 2 years ago at Colorado? It was Mel Tucker. So for a program like Colorado to invest a lot of time and a lot of money on Deion, for him to leave, that would put a lot of strain on that university.
Yeah.
As you see, came out today, they're changing their whole parameters academically to be able to qualify to go to school there. So they're bending over backwards for Deion, and they're kind of mortgaging their future on it. And I wish him the best, but I really don't think he's not there more than 3 or 4 years. That's what I think, because he's always the type of guy that's aiming to be the best, and I don't think Colorado is his ultimate destination.
Stepping stone. After Brandon, I got a question for you, Rob, but I want to hear.
Yeah. Before I go to Brandon, I just want to say there's a lot of people in the transfer portal that are interested in Colorado, but once you get there and you realize how lower level their facilities are compared to UCLA, USC, and your own conference, or especially Oregon, good God. And then you get to the Big Ten, SEC, you're in the cold weather. The facilities aren't that great. So are you going for this coach that may or may not be there? Transfer portal obviously alleviates some of that worry. Brandon, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, no, you're exactly right. And I think that's why, him coming there brings change to that facility. I mean, obviously, Tom stole my thunder a little bit, but they did completely restructure their academic just to have kids be able to transfer their credits athletically to graduate. So they're all in on this. Now, this may be a stepping stone for Deion Sanders, and as it should be, and he's moving up the ranks. But everything he leaves behind him is better. He is leaving things behind him better than they were, and he's making change and making waves where he comes in. So that's a lot to be said about, his character and his belief and what he's trying to do and accomplish. Yeah, you can call him one of the greatest cornerbacks of all time, whatever. But he's actually
not one of the, just the.
Probably
well,
the
what I'm saying. He's putting himself out there and really trying to make things better as he leaves it. But that's just it. I mean, this is a game, and he's working his way to the top. But it's not in bad spirits when he leaves the team, especially with the transfer portal. It's like, okay, I'm going here. Come on. If you want to come, let's go. I know you. I know and he told the kids at Colorado, like, be ready to compete. Like, if you can't, get out the door. Like, hit the transfer
Jump in that portal.
That's right. Like, I'm bringing my luggage. This is what I said earlier. Like, come on. And he truly believes that. And he's building programs as he, makes these stepping stones. But he's leaving everything better. So how can you fault a man for that and what he's doing to this program and taking advantage of NIL, transfer portal, whatever it have be? I can't do nothing but stand back and clap for the guy. Like he's doing great things right now, in my opinion.
If you've ever been to Boulder, like that campus is beautiful. That football stadium is gorgeous. You sit in there and you look out at the Rocky Mountains. It's a fantastic place to watch game. It's not 50,000 people, but it's great. Hopefully they get it rowdy
but to
like
your
they
point,
were.
their facilities are not so great right now.
Yeah.
But what if after his 2-year stint or 3-year stint, whatever it may be, they get all this donor money all of a sudden, and now their facilities are starting to compete with other people because they realize that, hey, we can compete and we can recruit these transfer kids. And
Well, Ross, what's the Pac-12 commissioner name that has the games on Friday night? Don't get any ratings. That's his ordeal.
Now it's George. Isn't it George Kliavkoff or whatever? He's a moron. But
yes.
Well, along those lines, Brandon mentioned NIL, and that was going to be my question. There are thoughts that, Colorado's alumni, for a lot of different reasons, now they have donated in the past, but, it's just a different animal in the state of Colorado for the most part.
Mm-hmm.
Many people believe
a lot of out-of-state alumni. A lot of people leave.
Exactly. And many people believe that NIL money will come from all over the country with Deion there. However, with the players themselves, my question for you, Rob, I mean, right now, Deion is an Under Armour guy right now, but he's contractually obligated to wear Nike at Colorado. So my question to you is when it comes to NILs, is he allowed to be, as a coach, a joint endorser or because if you put a kid with Deion Sanders, that's going to rake in money from all over but I know he has contractual obligations. I didn't know how that affected NIL money, et cetera.
My understanding of it is schools can still not directly pay players. Now there can be funds that they have, but I don't think Deion can show up in an Aflac commercial with the starting quarterback. I think the schools can pool money together, but as long as it's not coming from that institution, then they can pay. And maybe y'all know more than I do, but that's my understanding of it. Because I know when Lane Kiffin was flirting with Auburn. He was like, Ole Miss needs to get more NIL money, and that's when they changed the state law, I guess, to give coaches more power. But it's all the Wild Wild West. I think Dion will be successful wherever he goes. I think if he can coach, he's made some good hires. Um, Colorado he's a South Florida guy. He played most of his career in Atlanta, Dallas, San Francisco. Yeah. He's got his eye, I would think, on one of those Florida schools. And
Sure.
so if you're Colorado, when you're writing these checks, you better be sure the person behind them is going to be able to cash them, because it could be a 2 and out.
Don't sign an Aaron Judge deal.
All right, good segue. We'll skip to that. We'll go to Aaron Judge. So, obviously, two huge baseball fans on top of the screen of ours. LA's got a bunch of pocket money in their pockets. Detroit, not so much, but they've got, all baseball owners have money in their pockets, but maybe not 60 mil over 9 years. My brief thoughts were, that's a lot of money for a guy who's going to be 39 at the end of his contract. But then I was explained that Bryce Harper signed $330 million a few years ago, and he's going to be making $25 million. So it's almost half the price of Aaron Judge. So maybe it does make sense as the salaries are going to increase. Raj, you're a Dodger fan. Y'all guys throw money out. What do you think of the Judge contract?
Can I go first before the analytics get in here with the real professionals and what they have to say? Because
Brandon, yes, you can be like, I've got that under my couch. Like, is that much money?
No, I know nothing about that. All I know is that Aaron Judge is 30 or creeping up on 30, and they just signed a 9-year contract for $360 or whatever it is $1 million. And this is an offensive player, okay? He's not going to carry you to the playoffs. You can pitch around guys like this. Now, he's going to get his, but, you look at postseasons, he's batting like 220 or something. You can't pay that amount of money. He's going to sell jerseys. He's going to pack the stadium. They're all going to be hoping for that one home run that he hits, or 2 or 5 or whatever it is in a game. But that's not going to win you a championship, and that's been proven. I mean, look at New York, Giancarlo Stanton, and they've been injured. Aaron Judge has been injured a lot. I mean, this is just a stupid move. Another flashy New York Yankee, we got money, we can pay the guy kind of move, in my opinion. It's awful. It's terrible. That we all love him in a home run derby, or as a one of those players you watch hit a home run, but he's not going to carry your team to a championship. And that's my whole little spat. I'll get off my pedestal right now and let the real people talk about what they know.
All right. So just let everyone know, before we came on stage or on the show, Brandon said, oh yeah, it's been raining. I couldn't work today. My daughter's at child care, or school. My wife's out of town. I haven't really been doing any much. Well, what he's been doing all day was studying his Judge rant, is what he just went on. He knew who was writing what. He was ready for that question. He even made me jump ahead to it. I even had on my agenda if we have time, but he made me jump to it to get there. So that's what Brandon has been doing all day, is studying.
I might have done a little research on Judge, but
let me go first instead.
Yeah. Before you idiots have anything to say, let me try.
All facts, by the way. All facts.
Yeah. All right. So that's what Brandon's been doing today. All right, Tom, let's go to you.
Go ahead, Raj. You wanted to go next.
Okay.
No, I mean it's
Everyone's scared after that Brandon rant. After Brandon just broke it down, everyone's a little nervous to go.
Chain with the walk off there. He pretty much nailed it. Yeah, I mean it's all guaranteed, 40 million straight every year for a guy who defensively, according to the metrics, is a below average fielder. Now he doesn't commit a lot of errors. It is Yankee Stadium. But when it comes to F-WAR, the metrics that you'll see on like fan graphs, he's technically a below average fielder. He is not, as many will say, a 5-tool player, as some will say 4-tool. Don't get me wrong, but power is the first thing to go. And this kid's going to be there 9 years. He's going to be 39. When you look at the other huge contracts, you got guys like Trout, Mookie Betts, and Francisco Lindor, guys that can do a lot of different things on the baseball field. And Judge, in my opinion, hasn't shown that. Yeah, in the postseason, like Brandon said, statistically, he has not been awesome, hitting roughly, close to Mendoza. And again, I'd be concerned about him even playing in right. He hasn't shown the highest degree of durability, if you will. If you don't hit home runs and get on Sports Center, especially in New York City, things can go bad. And I fully expect this to go bad. I didn't want him on the Dodgers. I thought the Giants were going to, he's a Bay Area kid, and I was all for that boat anchor of a contract going to San Francisco, but it ends up in New York.
Yeah. Tom, what do you think?
Yeah, I mean, we experienced that here in Detroit, and thankfully, this is the last year of the contract of Miguel Cabrera. He signed a huge contract, I think it was 9 years ago, and it was all based on them winning the World Series within that year or the next couple. And they got close, but they were never able to get over that hump. And the last 5 years has just been a complete decline. His numbers have gone down every year. Although last year he improved with his average, but I mean he's a singles machine now, and he's a $35 million singles machine who DHs. So that's a lot to weigh on your team payroll. But yeah, I mean if you go back and you look at this past playoff run with New York. What did they not have? They didn't have pitching. They didn't have a bullpen. And Judge had, I think, 4 home runs, and those were his only hits of the series. He struck out probably 15 or 16 times. And is that, what you want every year? Because that's what the Yankees are going to be every year. They're going to lead the league in home runs. Mike Stanton, don't call me Giancarlo. He's going to be on the DL 3-4 times a year. That's just a lot. And I think this is a situation where San Francisco is ready to pounce and New York couldn't have it. So they were just going to throw the money. And God knows they have all the money in MLB, and they got greedy. And ultimately they'll finish second in the AL East. They'll get bounced. Maybe in the ALCS, from time to time, but he's not the player like Raj said. He's not a guy that's going to steal your bases. He's not a guy that's going to wow you defensively. His WAR and defense is not good. So they're basing this entirely on the fact that he hit so many home runs, and he's a home runs machine. But when it comes down to it, he did not produce in the playoffs, and if that's what they want, that's what they're going to get. And big mistake for New York. As you can see on the other side of town, they racked up Verlander. Now they have Verlander, Scherzer. They're building something there, and just the game is built on pitching. New York doesn't seem to figure that out, and they haven't won since they had legitimate pitching, and I think they're gonna suffer for it. Not a good move from New York.
He is marketable as heck, though, and it is.
I agree.
So, I mean, that definitely played a role, in my opinion.
For sure.
You needed that figurehead.
He's the face of the team. I get it, but
New York with an open checkbook, they continually to overcompensate on missed contracts that they should have had on a good year, and they overpay the next contract season, and then they end up where they're at, and they're going to be in the playoffs every year, but they're never going to win a World Series.
Nope.
Yeah, and so I agree with all of you guys, but I think, and to go on Brandon's point, this may have been a New York Yankees image issue. Like, we won't be outbid because we're still the big dogs, and they made a bad business decision. Look, and maybe me and Brandon are agreeing so much that we don't watch a lot of baseball, but I know this. I think it was in 2003. I watched the best hitter I've ever seen in my entire life. I saw him get taken out of a World Series the entire playoffs, the World Series, because you can pitch around them, and if you can't steal bases, give Barry Bonds base one. We'll deal with the rest. And so I don't care if you can hit 62 homers or not, or 73.
It's not going to carry your team.
Yeah, I can pitch around you.
Absolutely, you can pitch around them, and this isn't like signing an NBA player that plays on both sides of the ball that you can, you're getting defense and offense out of them. I mean, this is a strictly home run hitter. You're looking for the big swing, and his on base percentage is probably lacking relative to at bats. So it's a terrible, especially being 30, 9 years. I mean, this is just asinine to me. I mean, stupid. Like, how many big home run guys, like those are the first guys that fall, right? Like, how many of them are you going to sign that are actually going to fulfill?
Have your solo home runs, because that lineup's got holes. You
you have how the Major League Baseball makes their baseball, like the actual ball, and like, is it meant to fly? Is it meant to die? Like, there's a lot of variables where you're putting $360 million into one player. But that being
keep in mind real quick, what is going away this upcoming season? The shift. So offensively, baseball is going to be a little bit more offensive driven. So that changes too. That changes things.
I did not know that.
Let me ask you this question, Tom.
Yeah.
Do you think Aaron Judd can hit, right center or right 3-4 on demand? No.
Probably not.
He can spray the ball, but he's not.
The pitchers will be able to, pitch around him, but as far as like, doing the shift, having the infield all coming over to the one side or whatnot, that's going to change some things.
That. All he's trying to do is hit it over.
He's trying to mash
every single time.
Yeah,
and he's done well at it, but that's going to go. And then when that goes, what's left? Like,
he's going to have to learn how to.
He's a right-handed, so it's not going to affect him.
He can't do anything defensive.
All right. Enough baseball talk. It's always too much on reckless speculation. All right, so now we're going to transition to the NFL. All right, so we're talking storylines. What brings up to your attention? So some of the top of my head, San Francisco, no QB. Von Miller out for the Bills. Titans to fire the GM. Randall's prediction on the Lions in the playoffs. Is that going to happen? So we got to figure out what are you? We're 12 weeks in, 5 weeks to go. What are your takeaways? What do you think about this NFL season so far? And what do you think is going to happen? What are you looking forward to, Tom?
The thing that stands out the most for me, and we talked about it in our previous show, what division did we hands down all agree was going to be the powerhouse 1 through 4. The
Yeah,
AFC.
so AFC West, yeah.
Yeah.
What division right now is absolutely not the powerhouse? And the one team that we all thought was going to take a step back is actually a lot better now than they were a year ago. That's the AFC West and the Kansas City Chiefs. So it just goes to show you that this has been probably one of the strangest years in the NFL. As far as some of the scenarios, both New York teams above 500 at this point in the season.
The
The
AFC
Rams,
East being
yeah.
amazing. when they were
Everybody in the
dog
AFC
crap.
East is over 500, which I called them the NFC least in preseason.
Yeah.
But then you look at my lovable Leos, the Detroit Lions, 4-1 in the last 5 games. Jared Goff, who everyone wrote off, even in this city, coming into this season, he's had the 3rd highest rating in the last 5 games. There are 2 games out of a wild card spot, and lo and behold, they're a 2.5-point favorite going in this weekend
Yeah.
against
10-2
Minnesota.
team at home. A 10-2
10-2
team.
yeah. So it's been a crazy year, but that's the beauty of the NFL. That's why we all watch. In the ratings are always going to be what they are, but I think that the biggest thing for me is the AFC West. And then here's a little tidbit: is Matthew Stafford going to ever play again in the NFL? I heard a little information today that makes me wonder if his days in the NFL are over with. So interesting storylines, definitely moving forward.
Raj.
So what's most interesting to me right now is that the 49ers are, Garoppolo, we've heard conflicting information, but basically today it was said that, he's not playing anytime soon. That looked bad. Avoided the Liz Frank, but that looked horrible. They're going with Mr. Irrelevant, former Iowa State quarterback Brock Purdy. This week, Baker Mayfield is available. The 3-9 Rams. Now, I don't even know if the Niners put a claim on him, but also consider the Niners need a quarterback.
He got picked up by somebody, didn't
By
he?
the Rams.
Rams.
3-9.
Okay. And they're saying he might play this week.
And again, when you look at the Niners, not only needing a quarterback, but think about their running back, Christian McCaffrey, who played with Baker for quite at least this year in Carolina. So it makes me wonder, did the Niners really go after him? Was McCaffrey is somebody who knew him on and off the field? Pure conjecture, but no, dude, I don't want to play with that guy again. He's this, he's that. I just found that very interesting, considering the Niners are
requested to be released.
And
Baker Mayfield requested to be released, and they granted it. So I think he had intentions or thinking that San Francisco was
going to go. And I know the waiver, it's based on who has priority, right? Who can claim, right, and the worse the team. And I just wonder what the Niners did, if anything. We haven't seen a lot about that, but the more I thought about it with McCaffrey, and maybe they were content with rolling with Purdy and somebody that's been with them and knows the system. And maybe McCaffrey said, screw this guy, because I could totally see that.
It seems like that locker room really likes Brock Purdy.
Yeah.
I was listening to one of the defensive guys talk about how he leads 7-on-7s on Fridays, and he fires up the offense to score on them. And obviously the defense feeds off that, and they don't want to get scored on. But they basically said that this guy's a gamer, and we have his back. And he looked pretty good last week coming off the bench.
He did.
He won games at Iowa State. That's just it. Sorry,
Brandon. My question is going to be more pointed towards you. The Titans have a 3-game lead with the Colts have a tiebreaker, which would put us in there. We are -21 on the point differentiate scoring of the year. What do you think of the Titans, and what do you think of the NFL overall this year?
Titans are just not a good team right now. That was obviously exposed the last 2 weeks. You know, we played the Bengals hard at home, but offensive line again, you know, troubled us, and then we couldn't account for Joe Burrow. You know, he made, you know, a couple key plays here and there with his legs that really kept the drives going and ultimately ended in points. It's a whole shakeup now with J. Rob being fired. Like, somebody had to take the blame. All right.
Mhm.
So, and it's been a personnel issue for the last 3 years, right? So, you know, not that he wasn't trying, and he's not a GM that's going to sit back and be still and sit here and let stuff play out. He's always trying to make an aggressive move, and you know, I give him credit for that, because there's not a lot of GMs that'll do that. They'll sit back on their draft and they'll let it play out and they'll see what happens. He's trying to make moves, but you know, timing of this fire for him, I give 2 points on that. One, if it's going to be done, get it done as soon as possible. And that, I think that's what Amy Adams did in this situation. Like, not let it linger. Like, it's not going to affect anything. All right. Two, there's no interim, or even if you hired a GM right now, that you can find an offensive line right now that's going to fix the problem. So there's no way to fix this problem, you know, with the player personnel per se right now.
You think
I think
just
Quarterback.
playing AJ Brown last week and getting torched? Do you think maybe that had anything to do
Oh,
with
yeah.
I don't.
Oh, yeah.
I don't
I
think
do.
I
I
do.
don't think it did. I don't think it did at all.
It was embarrassing.
It was embarrassing, but we all knew that was coming, right? Like, everyone can see that. This dude is talented. He deserved to be paid, and we didn't want to pay him. He wanted to be a Titan. He wanted to retire a Titan. Like, his career, he wanted
Isn't
to
she
be a
saying, like,
Yeah.
paid him?
And
And Brandon, I'll let you. Let me interject, and I'll let you finish if you've heard the same things that I've heard, or if not. Um, from what I've heard is that Amy Adams, what she is in the draft room for at least the first round,
yeah,
and that's when Robinson traded AJ Brown. So she signed off on that,
she did.
and so
because because of draft capital. All right.
yeah,
So we owed Tannehill, which we were on the hook for, because he restructured his contract for Julio, 22.5 million, or what, 27 million or something like that this year. So that put us over the cap. We were behind the 8 ball all day.
yeah.
So I get that, I see that, but at the same time, like, restructure something else and keep
Yeah,
the
it was
players. Like,
she
right
signed
now,
off
ours,
of that, and then now firing the person that executed it, which
yeah,
it was,
and I'm sure so did Vrabel. Well,
yeah,
I doubt Vrabel did. I did see a snippet of the draft room when they made that trade, and Vrabel stood up out of his seat and walked off in the room. Vrabel was pissed
why wouldn't they run that by the head coach? That's a
because
well,
problem.
it's
That's a
above
problem.
his pay grade. You
that's a
know, it's
Titans
above his pay grade.
organization problem at the moment.
Yeah. So I think I agree, Robbie. It could be a little bit of, you know, pushing the blame on him. Somebody's head's got to be on the table, right? And, you know, who else better than the GM that's quasi fulfilled his duties? Like, he made
Well,
moves. Like, he's aggressive, and I appreciate that. But yeah, some are wrong. Mostly have been wrong in his position. I mean, he might have had one of the worst first round draft picks ever in the history of NFL football, and we won't say names, but It's been a long road
That
coming
that's why
back.
I've been saying for years. Just trade our first round picks. We screw them up anyways. Trade them, get more second, third, fourth round
But
picks.
he did that, and he was great at that. He was great
Yeah,
at Moneyball capital. Like he really was. Like draft pick capital. Like he was so good at that. And you know, until the last 2 years, like Tannehill, that really handicapped us this year with what we could actually do with capital as far as salary cap and
On
trade
and off
wise.
the field, in my opinion.
Oh, for sure,
well,
for sure.
well. My opinion on Tennessee
But
is this. It is. Look, we being Tennessee play a different style of football than the rest of the NFL play. With that being said, our style of play, we have this one monster beast, and he's only got so many years available. And if you think this is going to win, you got to go all in on it. And it's
absolutely.
and the window's closing, and now you
I think
see
that's what
the yeah.
I think that's why Amy made that decision because I mean we've got 2 years left of Derrick Henry. Um, Tannehill, look, everyone wanted him gone last year. There is no one that's going to take his 22 and a half or $27 million contract, whatever it was. Nobody was going to take that. So we couldn't trade him. Now now he's gone. I don't like the quarterback class this year necessarily, like somebody that can step in and immediately play. So we'll probably franchise tag him and
Yeah.
pay him whatever for 1 year, and then we'll go back to the drawing board. But the problem has been on our offensive line. You know, we've had Taylor Lewan.
And play calling, yes. But anyways, Brandon, I'm sorry to interrupt you, but we've got about 8.5 minutes left. I want to get to the Heisman finalists, and then we're gonna
Sorry,
do bet
I
your
could talk
nuts.
about this all day. So sorry.
Yeah. So Heisman finalists, we have Bennett, Duggan, Stroud, and Williams. All four quarterbacks. Three are in the playoffs. One is not. I don't know. Raj, have you heard? Is Williams going to play? Is he not going to play? Do you know yet?
So they haven't announced it yet. Personally, I'd be very surprised. We took the Tulane bullet, which, don't get me wrong, fine team, amazing running back. But from what I read and what I've heard and seen on insider boards, it's pretty bad. The hamstring popped on that 59-yard run. Moreover, he was already without his All-American left tackle. He lost his second best receiver, an All-American in many services, center Brett Nealon. If neither of them are going to play, which many people are suspecting they are not, I don't think we'll see him out there. And again, your hamstring, you don't recover.
Well, before we get there, what are your thoughts on the Final Four?
Oh,
and who do you think's going to win?
Well, I mean, being said, I think people kind of knocked Caleb. I thought he was a warrior, man. When Duggan got beat up, people were calling him a great player. For some reason, Caleb got flack, and he was on one leg. It obviously changed what he can do because he wasn't mobile. They knew they were going to pass, and still he threw for 360, 3 TDs, and 1 pick. I think he's easily the best quarterback in the country. I have no idea why that one game would affect. He is still an odds-on favorite, huge odds in Vegas. 37 TDs through the air, only 4 picks, mobility, escapability, another 10 rushing touchdowns. Nobody else compares statistically. A great leader, person in the community, all-around total package. I feel like the other guys were thrown in as competitors like Stetson Bennett because they are in the playoffs, and it's a better story to put those guys in there. I don't see anybody else winning. I'd be surprised if anybody else won. Being said, there are voters that are going to vote for Bennett just because he is a great story and it's Georgia. But if you're looking at on the field, best player off the field, it's Caleb Williams, and it's not close.
All right, Tom, what do you think?
I agree with Raj. It's Caleb Williams and the rest. Frankly, this top four is a joke. I think you can agree with me. Hendon Hooker, AP, all offensive player of the country, not going to New York. Blake Corum getting punished, in my estimation, for getting hurt against Illinois. Up to that point, he was a guarantee to be going to New York, not going to New York. I think Stetson Bennett being in there is just, he won a national championship last year. He's done better than expected. I think the pre-season had him toward the bottom as far as SEC quarterbacks. They love that. And I think that's a situation where, yeah, he's a winner. But I don't think he necessarily wins because of his talents. So for that, I disagree that he's going to New York. Max Duggan, 100%. I think I would give him the opportunity to go to New York. I mean, if there was any doubt, his performance against K-State proved his worthiness. Stroud, I mean, looking at stats wise, sure. He's got him into the CFP, so he's worthy. He's a hell of a quarterback. But Caleb Williams, the way he played, he almost changed the position in a sense where not too many players can get out of the pocket and keep their eyes downfield and then stop on a dime and throw a 50-yard pass. It's ridiculous what he was able to do.
And that's why, by the way, they haven't announced exactly what you said about Hendon Hooker and Blake Corum. It's the injury optics for the Heisman. And that's why we haven't had any updates. Nothing's being said. And I think as soon as he gets to New York and hopefully wins that Heisman, then we'll find out he's not playing. Yeah. But, yeah, injuries matter, and that's part of the optics. And I think that's why he also didn't come out of that game. They knew they were getting beat up, especially in the trenches.
Brandon, what are you?
I think the Heisman is complete BS, to be honest. It used to be integrity, like what actual person on your team can, if you took that person off your team, would you diminish or could you succeed? And that's changed. Now it's a popularity contest, in my opinion, for the most part. Now I'll give credit. Caleb Williams has been outstanding. And, a lot of people give him flack for the painted nails and, all this.
His mom, he grew up, by the way, his mom made her living doing nails. And he also started a mental health initiative at USC and is very active in the program, in the community. But, hey, let's talk about him writing F something.
Yeah. No, I'm just saying.
I'm not saying you. I'm just saying you've heard that. And I'm just like, are you kidding me?
Wait.
No.
Yeah, so Brandon, what are your thoughts?
But listen what I'm saying, though. Like, that's what's the problem with today's society. Like, this used to be a locker room. Like, people, when you play football, like you don't like the other team, and you get you have emotions and you necessarily didn't paint it on your fingernails, whatever. Maybe that's what's an expression now, but whatever. You had those thoughts and talks, and to doubt this kid just because of that, I think that's petty, in my opinion. You look at his body of work, and he's been great all season. I think he's a clear winner, but I also have to say Stetson Bennett should not be there over Hendon Hooker, in my opinion. Hendon Hooker, let's talk about stats. Stetson Bennett, 3,425 yards, 20 touchdowns, 6 INTs. Hendon Hooker, less games, 35 yards, 27 TDs, 2 INTs. QBR, Hooker, 69.6, Stetson Bennett, 68.1. QBR rating, Stetson Bennett, 86.3, Hendon Hooker, 80.4. And this guy wasn't even invited to the Heisman. I mean, it's a popularity contest. That's why I don't really give any merit to Heisman now, because it's complete BS. Probably since there was a big controversy with the Manning Woodson thing. I think that kind of sold the deal. But to be honest, I was on the Woodson side, but I get everybody's argument on the Manning side. But still, it's I don't give any merit to that trophy. It's a popularity contest at this point.
Yeah, I'll be brief, just my 2 cents, and then we'll get to our bet your nuts. I agree with most of you guys. Stetson Bennett, look, he's a winner. He's had a great college career. There's no way he deserves to be there. Hendon Hooker should be there. Hendon Hooker was Offensive Player of the Year in the SEC. Bennett didn't make the top 2 team. Like, just stop with that. That's just a dragging up drama to get to the college football playoff.
Didn't make
it's a TV show. If they would just say, like, hey, this is a TV show and we would like people to watch, like, we're fine with that.
I'll admit I have not watched much of Caleb Williams this year, but my God, before he got hurt against Utah, I'm watching that game and I'm like, this is Patrick Mahomes in college. Like, this is what this guy looks like. He looks like he's better than everyone else, and he can construe his body to where defensive backs will react one way and throw it a different way. Like, that's so. Hopefully, the kid isn't
earlier in the year. By the way, he had a
yeah.
It's a shame
so hopefully,
he can't go in the NFL this year.
Yeah, so hopefully he's not hurt, and hopefully he doesn't get hurt the rest of his career, because he's going to be a great pro.
Yep.
With that being said, I mean, I wouldn't be upset if Duggan won. I wouldn't be upset if Caleb Williams won. But those are the two that I think deserve it. And then, so we'll move on. Final words. Bet your nuts, guys. I think look at that. We are going to have a bowl special that we'll probably do before next Wednesday if we can schedule it in. But the bowls start the 16th, so we will have a regular show on Wednesday and a special bowl selecting poll, so you can get your gambling notes ready and get rich. Speaking of getting rich, bet your nuts, boys. Oh, disclaimer: I put my bet your nuts out there earlier for the Vols under 142. Of course, it hit because the Vols play great defense, but we couldn't do it on the show, so I'll give you guys another one. So, Tom, we'll start with you.
I'm going to go NFL this week. My bet my nuts. And I'm going to go to Pittsburgh at home against Baltimore. I think Baltimore is on the downside. Lamar Jackson not playing, obviously. He's got a left knee injury. Pittsburgh's hot. That defense is strong, and TJ Watt is doing what TJ Watt does when he's healthy. He's wreaking havoc. They're a 2.5-point favorite. Kenny Pickett has looked really well, and that run game is pretty strong too. Doesn't matter who they put back there; they're getting production. So give me Pittsburgh all day, -2.5. I think they're going to win by maybe a touchdown, and then we'll go out to LA. The Chargers at home against the Dolphins. I think the Dolphins might have been a little bit exposed last week in San Francisco. Chargers are getting 3 points. I like Chargers all day at home.
Oh, well, 2 is questionable too.
Yeah, so I think 2 was on the injury list. He might have a hangnail or something. They put him on the list. So give me the Chargers +3 at home against the Miami Dolphins.
All right, so 2 picks from Tom. All right, Brandon, what do you got?
Oh, my bet you're nuts. Absolute lock. Seahawks -4 over the Panthers.
Damn.
Yes.
3.5.
Geno Smith he's the guy this year,
Yeah.
right?
Wait, who'd you
Like,
say?
in
You said Seattle?
I got him at 3.5.
Seattle -4. I'll take him at -6.
Yeah, it's
I don't
3.5
care.
right now on ESPN.
I don't care what the line moves. You take Seattle and you take Geno and you take that offense. They are on fire right now.
Yeah.
And the Panthers, they're gonna brown.
How was that line
that's all
even
I
that
can
low?
say.
I don't get it.
It's so bad.
The only caveat would be Seattle against the run. And, with Foreman and Hubbard, that, Josh Jacobs, who's leading the NFL, though, tore them apart. They have been susceptible on the ground. That's the only reason why I can think of. It's only
they will outscore the Panthers. I don't care how much they want to run the ball.
Yeah,
all right.
You're right. Absolutely right.
All right. Raj, what do you got?
I mean, that was one of my games. The other two are both 9.5 spreads. One I like, and that's Kansas City 9.5 at Denver. Denver's offense is just atrocious, and I think Kansas City is a damn good road team. I know they lost last week at Cincinnati by 3, but they really could have, and some would say should have won that game. Probably shouldn't have punted, but I'll take them all day. And then I'm going with the Jets, Jets, dude, getting 9.5 points. Mike White at Buffalo.
White.
Lighten it up, baby.
Yeah, dude. I mean, a guy that can just sling it, that's always – he's been like that last year he was too. I think 9.5 is too much. The Jets beat them 20-17. I think that was with Zach Wilson. And, I just think it's going to be a dogfight. And the Jets will play that physical brand of football too. Carter should be coming back. Zonovan Knight. I like the Jets. I think they definitely cover 9.5.
These nuts. Got him.
Little Zach Wilson for you.
All right. So my bet you're nuts. It's going to be one known and one unknown. The known is going to be, as much as I like how the Vikings are the Lions are playing. They're going against a 10-2 team, -2.5. Vegas is begging you to bet the Vikings. I think the public does the opposite of what Vegas is betting. I think the Vikings come in there and win outright. Second pick is, I know a lot of us haven't gotten to college basketball season yet, but Tennessee plays Maryland in Brooklyn this weekend. We obviously don't have the lines as we go through this every week in these college basketball season. Whatever it is, give me the under. The Vols have hit 3 straight unders. Their defense is number 1 in Ken Palm. They're ranked number 2 in Ken Palm overall. Maryland is 20th in Ken Palm, but Maryland's going to have a better record. There's going to be a little ACC hype. This is going to be one of the Vegas odds makers. I don't think it's going to get right. So Tennessee in the under. If you want to get greedy and take the points, especially if Maryland's favored.
You lost me an Aaron Judge contract right there at that point. I don't know what you're even saying.
All right. Well, anyways, final words. Brandon, we'll go with you since you don't know what we're saying.
I do. No, it's a fun time of year, boys. I mean, we got all kinds of sports going on, and we look forward to it. Postseason, preseason, whatever. Trades, even MLB stuff's going on. So, good time of year. Looking forward to the playoffs. It's I just hope Ohio State doesn't get embarrassed, and hopefully we can hold our own against Georgia and at least make a game of it.
All right. Thank you. Side note, are you going to the Titans game Sunday?
95% yes.
All right. I may be too. Raj, what's your final words?
A couple things on the bowls. One, I look forward to teams like Alabama and the Sugar playing K-State and USC playing Tulane in the Cotton. Teams that are kind of in these no-win situations, like major.
That's our next week topic.
No, what I'm saying is, though, like, it's just we're talking about 18-year-old kids, and it's just really hard to get up for these types of games. And then I look forward to everybody condemning those teams for eternity because they didn't show up against, like, subpar teams. But that's the bowl season. The other thing, speaking of crappy things about the bowl, and I'm going to say this, Will Levis from Kentucky, who I think is overrated, just announced that he's not playing. The over-under in that game against Iowa is 31.5 points. It may have even gone down. And that game's in Nashville, by the way, the Liberty Bowl. I mean, what a crap fest when you're over-under. And that's not for a half, dude. 31.5 points. Why would anybody watch that game?
Anyone that pays money to go to that game is an idiot.
Is an idiot. And just a gross game. And like, I was just looking at the schedule, and when I saw that and I looked at the over-under, I was just like, dude, that's just just diarrhea on a screen, dude.
That was one topic we didn't talk about was opting out college people.
We're into that next week. I've got other bowls opting out. We're getting to that all next week.
I couldn't get past it. My bad. But that's it.
Tom, last words, parting shots.
Final words. If you guys have noticed on the bottom of the crawl and kind of the backdrop, today's Pearl Harbor Day. And if you haven't had the chance to visit Pearl Harbor, it's breathtaking. And I've had the opportunity. I've been there twice, and both times were just amazing to see one of the biggest pieces of history that took place. And you look down when you're in the Arizona Museum there, you're right over the ship, and you can still see oil leaking out. And it's really surreal. It's almost like the souls of the sailors are down there. So I just wanted to give recognition and honor to the over 3,000 men that lost their lives. Some, never knew it was coming. It was, gone in a flash. So my hat goes off to those who lost. And I just wanted to give remembrance to, a very important day in our history and near and dear to me since I've had the ability to go and see the museum. So, they're never forgotten. That's for sure.
Yes. And I'll echo those sentiments. It is amazing. You go out there and you stand above it and you do still see it leaking oil. It's crazy. But yeah, with those things being said, Tom, I'll echo this and take it a step further. Today is 12/7. America was attacked. We have 9/11 that we've lived through, and we have 1/6 that we lived through. Yesterday, Georgia elected Raphael Warnock. And this is not to get political on one side or the other. This is to say Republicans need to learn a lesson. You can't nominate idiots to serve a important position. It was probably a winnable race, but you can't nominate a complete just sack of bricks to win. So Republicans do better.
I would actually combat that with the guy in Pennsylvania that was elected. So
I got that. Fair point. But the voting dynamics are different. But overall, guys, great show. And yes, I will second. Pearl Harbor was a day that will live in infamy, and it surely has. Mm-hmm. And the whole world changed during that day and the events after that. But good show, guys. We'll hop on here next week. We will have to get together and plan out a bowl pick'em show. We'll do that. But yeah, thank you guys. And I promise, like, subscribe, We really appreciate it, and thank you for watching.
See you guys. We'll see you next week.
Was it over when the Germans bombed Pearl Harbor? Movie? Anyone? Movie? Animal House?